he didn't say no. That's the part that makes this so hard. If he had said no, clearly, finally, without room for interpretation, you would have grieved. You would have hurt. And eventually, you would have moved on. But he didn't say no. He said maybe someday. And those two words, maybe someday, became the place you've been living ever since. Not in the relationship, not outside of it, somewhere in between, waiting for a door that was never fully open to finally open all the way. Tonight I want to talk about what maybe someday actually is. Not what it feels like, not what you hope it means, what it is. And I want to warn you, what I'm going to say is going to be uncomfortable, because it's not really about him. It's about why maybe someday was ever enough for you. I know what it's like to be the one who says it. I've been on the other side of this conversation, the one who kept someone at almost and told myself I was being honest. I wasn't being honest. I was being careful. There's a difference. Here's what most people never say out loud about avoidant attachment. It's not that avoidants don't feel. They feel, often more intensely than they can manage. The distance isn't indifference. The distance is a system. A very old, very efficient system that was built, long before you, to make sure that love never gets close enough to destroy them. And maybe someday is one of that system's most elegant tools. It keeps you close enough that he doesn't have to feel the loss of you, and far enough that he never has to feel the full weight of you. You are being held at exactly the distance that works for him. The question, the one we'll come back to, is why that distance started to feel like home to you. Here's what maybe someday looks like in practice. It's Sunday morning, and the conversation turns serious. You ask, not for the first time, where this is going. And he doesn't get angry. He doesn't shut down completely. He gets thoughtful. He says he cares about you. He says the timing isn't right. He says, and this is the part you hold on to, maybe someday, when things settle down, and you hear, he wants this. He just needs more time. What he is actually communicating is more precise than that. He is saying, I want the feeling of possibility without the reality of commitment. I want the option of you, without the weight of choosing you. This isn't cruelty, it's rarely conscious. Most avoidants genuinely believe they mean it when they say, maybe someday. In that moment, something in them does want it. But wanting something in the abstract and being able to receive it in reality are completely different things. A woman I'll call Rachel came to me after 3 years of maybe someday. 3 years. Every few months a conversation. Every conversation, the same answer, slightly reworded. She told me he always said it like he meant it. His eyes went soft. I believed him every time. I asked her, what changed between those conversations? She went quiet. Nothing changed. That was the answer. 3 years. Nothing changed. Maybe someday isn't a timeline. It's a holding pattern. It doesn't mean later. It means not now. And I'm not ready to tell you never. Now I want to turn toward you for a moment. Because here's the part of this conversation that most people skip. And it's the most important part. Why did you stay? Not why did he say, maybe someday. We've covered that. But why did you? A woman who knows her own worth, who has read the books, who has had the conversations with her friends. Why did you let almost become enough? I'm not asking to assign blame. I'm asking because the answer to that question is where your actual freedom lives. There's something that happens in certain nervous systems, systems that were shaped in early environments where love was inconsistent, where almost starts to feel safer than fully. If you grew up with a parent whose love was conditional, warm sometimes, distant others, present when things were good, unavailable when you needed them most, your nervous system learned something very specific. It learned that love has a gap in it, and that gap, that uncertainty, is what love feels like. So when someone comes along who is fully available, fully present, fully choosing you, Something in you gets uncomfortable. It's too still, too certain. There's no gap to wait in, no distance to cross, no moment of relief when they finally come back. And when someone holds you, it almost keeps you in that familiar, uncertain space. Your nervous system recognizes it. It doesn't feel like pain. It feels like home. A client I'll call Mia told me something I've never forgotten. She said, "When he was distant, I felt alive. When he was warm, I felt suspicious." She laughed when she said it. The way people laugh when they've just understood something they've been running from. You didn't stay because you were weak. You stayed because almost spoke a language your body already knew. The work isn't learning to love better. The work is learning to tolerate being fully chosen, without waiting for it to fall apart. Let me say something about avoidance that often gets missed in these conversations. Avoidant attachment isn't a personality defect. It's a survival strategy. Somewhere in his history, early, before he had language for it, closeness became dangerous. Not physically, usually, emotionally. He learned that needing someone meant being vulnerable to their withdrawal, and withdrawal to a child feels like annihilation. So he built distance into every connection, not to hurt people, to survive them. Maybe someday is part of that architecture. It's a way of keeping you in his life, because part of him genuinely wants you there, while maintaining the gap that keeps him safe. Here's what's important to understand. He probably believes he'll be ready someday. He's not lying to you. He's lying to himself first. The belief that someday, when things are different, I'll be able to do this, is one of the central myths of avoidant psychology. Because the thing that needs to change isn't the circumstances, it's the internal architecture. And that architecture doesn't change by waiting for better timing. It changes through deliberate, uncomfortable work. Work most avoidants won't do unless the pain of staying the same finally exceeds the fear of changing. His maybe someday isn't about you. It's not a reflection of your worth or your lovability. It's a window into what he's able to offer, right now, with the internal work he has or hasn't done. You cannot love someone into readiness. You can only decide how long you're willing to wait for something that may never come. I want you to sit with one question tonight. Not answer it, not defend yourself against it. Just let it land. When you imagine him finally saying yes, finally choosing you, fully, without conditions, are you imagining love? Or are you imagining relief? Those are different things, and they lead to very different lives. There's a specific kind of pain that comes with waiting for an avoidant. It's not the sharp pain of rejection. It's slower than that, more erosive. It's the pain of reorganizing your life around someone's potential, of making yourself smaller so you don't overwhelm him, of monitoring your own needs, how much you express, how often you reach out, how much space you take up. Because you've learned that taking up too much space makes him retreat. You become a curator of yourself, presenting only the parts that won't trigger his distance. And slowly, so slowly you don't notice it happening, you stop being fully yourself in the relationship. You become the version of you that he can handle. I've sat with women who have done this for years, who, when I ask them what they actually want, not what they think they can have, but what they want, go quiet for a long time, because somewhere along the way, their own wants stopped feeling relevant. A woman I'll call Claire told me, "I've spent so long trying to be easy to love that I forgot what it felt like to just be myself." That's the real cost of maybe someday. Not just the time, the self. The relationship that asks you to shrink isn't protecting you from pain. It's the source of it. A love that requires you to manage yourself into acceptability is not love. It's an audition that never ends. Here's something nobody talks about. What happens to your sense of reality when you live inside maybe someday for long enough? You start to doubt your own perception. He's warm one evening and you think, this is it, things are shifting. He's distant the next week and you think, I did something wrong. You spend enormous energy trying to decode a signal that was never meant to be decoded, because the signal itself is the strategy. The inconsistency isn't accidental. It's what keeps you focused on him. instead of on yourself. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement. The unpredictable pattern of warmth and distance creates a bond that is, neurologically, stronger than a consistent, loving relationship. Not deeper, stronger. The way a scar is stronger than uninjured skin. But it's still a scar. A woman I'll call Sophie described it this way. I felt like I was always on the edge of something, always about to understand him, always about to break through. And that feeling, that almost understanding, was more compelling than anything I'd felt in relationships where someone actually let me in. She wasn't addicted to him. She was addicted to the almost. That distinction matters, because you can grieve a person. Grieving the feeling of almost, grieving the hope itself, is a different kind of work, and it's the work that most people skip. They leave the relationship and immediately look for the next one. They carry the almost with them, and they find it again, in a different face, with different words, but the same fundamental distance. The almost will keep finding you until you understand why you were looking for it. I'm not going to tell you to leave. That's not mine to say, and it's not the point. The point is this: at some moment, and you'll know when it comes if it hasn't already, you'll face a choice, not between him and someone else, between him and yourself, between continuing to wait in the space he's offered you, which is real, which has warmth in it, which contains something genuine, and choosing to need more than maybe. That choice is not easy. It's one of the hardest choices a person makes, because it requires grieving someone who is still there, grieving a future that was never promised but felt, somehow, like it was yours. The love you felt wasn't less real because he couldn't meet it. The time wasn't wasted because it didn't become what you hoped. You loved someone. That means something. But loving someone and building a life with them are different things. And maybe someday, no matter how softly it's said, no matter how much he means it in the moment, is not a foundation. It's a waiting room. Next time I want to talk about what happens after you stop waiting. Not the triumph version, the real version. The strange, disorienting experience of choosing yourself when you've spent so long organizing your life around someone else's almost. If someone you know is living in a waiting room right now, you don't have to say anything. Sometimes just passing something along is enough. That's all for tonight.